A spokesperson from GB News confirmed to Express.co.uk the broadcaster has received no fines from Ofcom and they would never make their presenters pay Ofcom fines. However, they went on to point out there are 2 Ofcom investigations ongoing regarding Mark Steyn for breach of standards and for misinformation over the coronavirus vaccine. The complaints regarding the vaccine were sparked when Mark spoke with author and journalist Dr. Naomi Wolf. Mark has been off-air since suffering 2 heart attacks, and in a new clip shared on his website, the 63-year-old made some claims about his departure from the show. As he held up his contract from GB News, Mark began, "The state of play between me and GB News is that they have sent me a contract." After skimming a couple of clauses, the presenter explained the broadcaster decided we needed a defibrillator in the studio for me to be able to go back. He claimed GB News CEO chose to change the terms by which we do the show, which would be stressful, Mark continued. "But I've had 2 heart attacks, so I laugh at stress. I scoff at stress." He began to read out a clause from his contract, adding, "For the avoidance of doubt, as the Ofcom license holder, GB News has editorial responsibility for the Mark Steyn show and all content produced for GB News by the presenter and the US producers. Therefore, the parties agree that GB News editorial decisions shall prevail, which I wouldn't really mind. But I remember we had a little Ofcom back and forth about 10 minutes before I went on air a couple of months back. And my final words about the so-called compliance officer, he was Ofcom's BH. Well, Ofcom's BH has managed to have his revenge now." Then it goes on, GB News will ensure that the presenter and the US producers attend regular Ofcom training provided by the company's compliance officer. He claimed, "This is the final point I'll make on this, to the extent that the presenter and the US producers do not incorporate Ofcom regulatory input into an edition of the program, this shall be considered a material breach of this agreement. And the Mark Steyn Company shall indemnify GB News for any and all direct loss liability costs, including reasonable legal costs, damages or expenses that it suffers as a result of any regulatory breach." So the whole thing is, I suppose I'm on the hook there for Ofcom fines. This is the important point. I don't have any say in our defense against an Ofcom complaint, that is all done by GB News. He went on to claim he has to pay Ofcom the £40,000 fine. In response to Mark's allegations, a spokesperson for GB News said, "GB News takes Ofcom compliance extremely seriously. All our presenters are expected to comply fully with the broadcast code and there are no exceptions. This does not impinge on our ability to ask tough questions, express strong opinions, and debate the issues that matter to the people of Britain." GB News is available to watch daily from 6 a.m.